Blood seeped through the cracks of his vest, soaking the dark fabric until it felt like molten fire pressed against his chest. Commander Robert Hayes pressed one trembling hand over the wound, the other cradling the fragile body of the young hostage, a medical student barely 20, her eyes wide with terror as debris rained around them. The air was thick with dust and the metallic tang of gunfire. Sirens wailed in the distance, muffled by the ringing in his ears. Somewhere above, beams groaned as if the whole building might collapse. "Stay with me," Robert whispered, his voice rough but steady, though inside his chest it was breaking. The girl's small hand clutched his wrist with fading strength. He didn't know her name. He never would. But he knew this moment would haunt him for the rest of his life. 7 years later, the fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Memorial Hospital buzzed faintly overhead, casting long, sterile shadows across the trauma wing. The place never slept, not really. Machines hummed. Stretchers creaked. Somewhere down the hall, a heart monitor beeped with stubborn persistence, like a clock refusing to stop. Dr. Sophia Lane leaned over her patient, her scalpel flashing under the surgical light. Sweat tickled her temples beneath her cap. Her hands, steady as stone, moved with an elegance that belied the chaos unraveling around her. The patient's pulse faltered, eyes rolling back, the same piercing shade of blue she had seen once before. Sophia didn't notice at first, but when she did, her chest tightened unexpectedly. "That color, that memory." "Clamp," she said briskly. A nurse handed her the instrument without hesitation. At 32, Sophia was one of the youngest trauma surgeons in Boston. Her reputation? Ruthless precision. No wasted movements. Decisions made in fractions of seconds that often meant the line between life and death. Tonight marked her 5th consecutive 12-hour shift. No one forced her into it. She volunteered. She always did. When the chaos quieted for just a heartbeat, she slipped into the staff lounge. The room smelled faintly of disinfectant and burnt coffee. She sank into a chair, exhaustion weighing on her shoulders, and sipped from a paper cup. Lukewarm, bitter, but it kept her upright. Her phone buzzed. Dinner Sunday. Bringing neighbor Steve. Don't say no. Sophia stared at the message from her mother. She exhaled slowly, thumb hovering over the screen before pressing delete. It was always the same: introductions, setups, well-meaning attempts to fix her personal life, as though it were another patient in need of triage. But relationships, Sophia had learned, didn't follow protocols. There were no algorithms, no neat solutions. People were unpredictable, messy. And after her last relationship, 3 years gone to ashes, her ex accusing her of being emotionally unavailable, Sophia found solace in the controlled chaos of the ER. At least in medicine, there was order. Blood loss meant transfusion. A punctured lung meant a chest tube. Trauma had steps, rules, outcomes. People broke those rules. Her apartment was proof. Minimalist. Clean lines, bare walls, no photographs. No clutter to remind her of anything permanent. The only hint of warmth was her bookshelf, medical journals stacked neatly beside dog-eared poetry collections, relics from a life she almost let herself have once. She didn't dislike connection. She just didn't trust it. Emotions, she thought, were like volatile chemicals. Best handled with gloves. Best locked away. Her colleagues knew parts of her. The brilliant student who finished her residency faster than anyone expected. The surgeon who worked impossible hours. The one who, curiously, refused certain emergency drills involving hostage situations. What they didn't know, sometimes Sophia still woke gasping in the dark, heart hammering, the echo of breaking glass ringing in her ears. Across the city, a different kind of night unfolded. Commander Robert Hayes sat at his kitchen table, hunched over a worksheet covered in fractions. His 7-year-old daughter, Emma, pressed the eraser of her pencil against the page, her little brow furrowed in determination. "You're not even listening, Dad," she said, glancing up at him with a mixture of exasperation and affection. Robert blinked, refocusing. His gaze had wandered to the window again, to the shadows shifting beyond the glass. Habit. Years of tactical vigilance didn't fade when the uniform came off. "Sorry, kiddo," he said softly. He pointed at the paper. Try this one again. 2/3 plus 1/6. You've got this. Emma rolled her eyes, but a smile tugged at her lips as she bent back over the worksheet. Robert's phone buzzed against the table. Commander Reynolds, requesting him for tomorrow's hostage negotiation training. His jaw tightened. He glanced at the calendar pinned on the fridge, Emma's science fair tomorrow, a bright sticker marking the event she'd been talking about for weeks. The scales tipped inside his mind, the eternal war between duty and fatherhood. He looked at Emma, her hair tied in a lopsided braid. He'd spent 40 painstaking minutes wrestling together that morning with the help of YouTube tutorials. "Dad?" she asked without looking up. "Yes, sweetheart." "You'll be there tomorrow, right?" Robert swallowed. "Yeah, I'll be there." His house bore the marks of a man trying desperately to balance two worlds. A fridge plastered with finger paint drawings. A calendar filled with science fairs, parent-teacher nights, dentist appointments. His tactical gear stowed in the corner, scars hidden beneath his shirt, including one across his abdomen from a knife wound during an extraction years ago. A reminder every day that life was fragile, that he had to come home. His team respected him still, but they noticed it, the change. The once impulsive commander, now cautious, calculating, as though every decision carried the weight of Emma's face in the balance. Because it did. And so, in two separate corners of the city, Sophia and Robert carried their loneliness like armor, each masterful in control within their chosen battlefield. She in the ER, he in tactical operations, yet equally adrift when it came to the uncertainty of human connection. Neither knew it yet, but the storm that would force their worlds to collide had already begun gathering. If you were Sophia or Robert, which world would feel safer to you? The predictable chaos of the ER or the unpredictable dangers of the outside world? The trauma bay doors burst open. Alarms blared. Nurses rushed in every direction, their shoes squeaking on linoleum. The smell of gasoline and blood clung to the air, the aftermath of a 5-car pileup on the interstate. Dr. Sophia Lane was already in motion, her voice sharp, commanding. "Airway check. 2 units ONEG, now. Move." Stretchers rolled past her in rapid succession. Broken bones. Burned skin. One man moaning, his leg twisted at an impossible angle. Sophia's pulse remained steady as she triaged, her words cutting through the chaos like a scalpel. Then, a new commotion at the ambulance bay. Through the glass doors, she saw him. A broad-shouldered man in civilian clothes, though something about his bearing screamed authority. His sleeve was soaked in blood, dripping steadily onto the floor. Beside him on a gurney lay a small girl, pale, trembling, with a gash running across her forehead. "Sir, you need medical attention," a young intern insisted, trying to guide him toward treatment. "My daughter first," the man said, voice firm despite the strain. His eyes, sharp, unyielding, never left the girl. Sophia stepped forward, assessing both in a glance. "Room 3, for the child." For him," she ordered, her tone leaving no room for debate. Nurses obeyed instantly. The man moved to follow his daughter's gurney, but Sophia blocked his path. Though nearly a foot shorter, her authority was absolute here. "You're losing blood," she said evenly. "You need to be treated." "I need to be with her," he shot back, swaying slightly, though he tried to look steady. "You need to be conscious for her," Sophia countered, her voice calm but unyielding. "Trust my team. I promise you she'll be cared for." Something in her tone, a blend of steel and compassion, made him pause. Their eyes met. For just a moment, recognition flickered across his face. Sophia didn't notice. She was already signaling for a nurse to escort him. Inside room 3, Sophia bent over the child. "Hey there," she said softly, peeling back the blood-soaked gauze. "I'm Dr. Lane. What's your name?" "Emma," the girl whispered, her voice thin but steady. "You're safe now, Emma. And you're very brave. No stitches today, just these special bandages to hold everything together." Emma's wide eyes followed every careful movement of Sophia's hands. "Is my dad okay?" she asked suddenly. Sophia smiled gently. "Your dad's strong. He'll be fine. Right now my job is to make sure you're fine too." Emma hesitated, then leaned closer, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. He's always taking care of everybody else. At work, at home, everywhere. Sophia's hands stilled for a second. What does your dad do? She asked lightly, preparing the sterile dressing. Emma's lips curled into a proud smile. He stops bad guys. He's super brave. Sophia felt a strange tug in her chest. Brave. Yes, but she'd also seen the way his knees almost buckled when he tried to walk. Later, in room 4, Sophia found him halfway out of bed, signing discharge papers with a shaky hand. Unbelievable, she muttered, striding in. He looked up, jaw set. I've had worse. Just let me go. Sophia snatched the clipboard from his hand. Sit down. Now. I don't need. Your daughter needs you alive, she cut in, snapping on gloves. That gash in your arm? It requires proper suturing. You try to play hero now. You'll be back here with a full-blown infection. His eyes narrowed, but he sank reluctantly back onto the bed. As she cleaned the wound, her hands moved with precise efficiency. Her focus was surgical, her expression unreadable. He studied her, impressed despite himself. You've done this before. Sophia didn't look up. It's my job. Not just the job, he said. The way you move. Deliberate. Methodical. Military training. Her jaw tightened. No. Silence. Only the sound of thread pulling through flesh. The steady rhythm of her needle closing the wound. Finally, she said, your daughter will need follow-up care. Someone has to bring her back in 3 days. His eyes flicked to his watch, calculating. A training exercise. Emma's science fair. Logistics stacking in his mind. Sophia misread the glance as impatience. Don't worry, I'll keep it simple, she said flatly. He almost laughed, though the motion hurt. You think I'm impatient. I think you're another man who believes vulnerability is weakness. Her words hung in the air. His face hardened. He thought of nights spent holding his wife's hand during chemotherapy, powerless as the illness consumed her. Vulnerability hadn't been weakness. It had been everything. And it hadn't been enough. You don't know anything about me, doctor, he said quietly. Sophia tied the final knot with perhaps more force than necessary. You're stitched. Don't reopen it, or you'll be back here sooner than you think. Their eyes met, hers sharp with judgment, his shadowed with things unsaid. For her, he was just another reckless alpha who thought he could outrun pain. For him, she was a surgeon who assumed too much and knew too little. Two fortresses braced against the world, neither realizing how alike they were. That night, Sophia sat in her dark apartment, staring at the blank walls. The silence pressed down on her like a weight. Across town, Robert tucked Emma into bed. She smiled sleepily, whispering, You were so brave today, Daddy. But long after she slept, he sat at the kitchen table, staring at his stitched arm, thinking not about bravery, but about the doctor with the steady hands and the piercing eyes. And though neither admitted it, the collision had already set something in motion, something neither of them could control. Have you ever misjudged someone at first sight, only to realize later they were carrying battles you couldn't see? The morning sky over St. Mary's Memorial was iron gray, the kind of sky that promised storms. Dr. Sophia Lane tightened her lab coat around her shoulders as she crossed the parking lot. Her stomach clenched when she spotted them. Tactical vehicles lined up like sentinels, their black metal gleaming beneath the hospital's harsh lights. Men in full gear moved with quiet precision, rifles slung over shoulders. Her breath caught. For a moment, the world tilted, glass shattering, gunfire echoing, screams trapped inside her skull. Sophia forced air into her lungs. One breath, then another. She reminded herself, this isn't then. This is now. You're safe. Inside the auditorium, the seats were filled with doctors, nurses, and staff. At the front, standing tall in full tactical gear, was Commander Robert Hayes. Sophia froze mid-step. He was different here. No longer the wounded father clinging to pride in a hospital bed. Now he was command incarnate, sharp uniform, silver insignia gleaming beneath the fluorescent lights. His presence filled the room, quiet but commanding, like a man who'd stood at the edge of chaos more times than anyone should. "Our goal today," Robert said, voice carrying easily, "is seamless coordination. Medical and tactical. In a mass casualty or active threat, our survival depends on each other." Sophia slid into the back row, trying to disappear. But when his eyes swept the room, they caught hers, just for a heartbeat. And something unspoken passed between them. Assignments were announced. Sophia's name echoed through the auditorium, paired with Commander Hayes. She almost laughed at the cruel irony. Of course fate would shove her into the one corner she wanted to avoid. When the briefing ended, Robert approached her, his steps steady despite the bandaged arm hidden beneath a sleeve. "If this makes you uncomfortable, I can switch partners," he said quietly, surprising her. Sophia straightened her shoulders. "I'm fine. Let's just complete the exercise." The simulation began in an unused wing of the hospital. Lights were dimmed. Smoke machines hissed, filling the air with an acrid haze. Sirens wailed faintly over the intercom, a soundtrack of chaos. Sophia's heart pounded harder than it should. Her hands trembled as she adjusted her gloves. She clenched her jaw, forcing focus. Robert moved first. His body language shifted into tactical precision. Each step measured. Each glance deliberate. He spoke in low, clipped phrases. Moving left. Checking doorways. Covering south side. Sophia struggled to follow his signals. Her brain wired for vitals and blood counts, not military hand gestures. Then the victim appeared. A mannequin pinned beneath debris, simulated arterial blood pumping in rhythmic spurts. Sophia dropped beside it, instincts firing. Arterial bleed. "We need to control this before." "Move faster," Robert cut in. In real life, the patient's dead already. Her eyes flashed. And rushing could paralyze him if there's spinal trauma. "Do you want him alive, but crippled, or just dead?" Their voices rose, sharp against the artificial smoke. He demanded speed. She demanded caution. Neither yielded. And then the controller's voice over the loudspeaker. Simulation terminated. Patient deceased. Failure. The silence that followed was heavy. Robert stripped off his helmet, his expression unreadable. "This isn't working," he said at last. "We need middle ground." The second scenario began. Another victim. Another darkened corridor. Sophia crouched, her hands steady now, but her breathing quickened as the lights dimmed further. Shadows lengthened, pressing in. The smell of smoke burned her nose. Her fingers trembled against the mannequin's plastic skin. Robert saw it. Recognition flickered in his eyes. He'd seen this before, the telltale signs of someone touched by trauma. He didn't press, didn't bark orders. Instead, he shifted. "Moving left," he said softly, almost narrating for her benefit. Checking doorway. Approaching south side. His voice was steady, predictable, like a guide through the storm. Sophia's hand stopped shaking. She sealed the wound, her voice steady now. Bleeding controlled. Prep for extraction. They moved together, not perfectly, but smoother than before. During a break, Sophia sat on a bench, sipping from a paper cup of water. Her pulse was still elevated, but her hands had calmed. Robert crouched nearby, tightening the strap on his vest. Across the room, a young resident broke down mid-exercise, overwhelmed by the intensity. Instead of chastising him, Robert knelt beside the boy, speaking low and calm. "Breathe. You've got this. One step at a time." The same voice Sophia had heard him use with Emma. It didn't fit the picture she had painted of him, the reckless alpha, charging into danger without thought. No, this was something else. A man tempered by loss. A man who had learned patience the hard way. The realization unsettled her. Later, a small voice rang out. "Dr. Lane." Sophia turned. Emma was skipping across the training floor, escorted by one of Robert's teammates. Her forehead was healed now, a faint pink scar, the only reminder. "Dad, look," Emma exclaimed. "It's the doctor who fixed me." Robert chuckled, shaking his head. "Yes, I know. We've been reacquainted." Sophia knelt, smiling at the girl. "And how's my patient?" Emma puffed out her chest proudly. "No stitches. Just bandages. See." She pointed to the tiny scar. Sophia examined it gently. Perfect healing. You've been very brave. Emma leaned closer, whispering loudly enough for Robert to hear. I've been making sure he doesn't pull his stitches, too. Robert groaned. Emma. Sophia laughed, the sound surprising even herself. For the first time, the wall between them cracked, just a little. By the end of the day, their rhythm had shifted. He trusted her judgment with the medical details. She learned to trust his tactical instincts. Together, they saved the final patient in record time. When the simulation ended, Sophia pulled off her gloves. Sweat dampened her hairline. Her body was tired, but her heart felt lighter. Across the room, Robert met her gaze. No words passed, just acknowledgement, respect. Something had changed. That night, long after Emma was asleep, Robert sat at his kitchen table, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. He thought of Sophia's hands, steady despite the smoke, her voice sharp but sure. And Sophia, in her apartment, found herself staring at her bare walls again. For once, the silence felt different. Not empty, not heavy, just unsettled. As if something had begun she didn't dare name. Do you believe two people who clash at first can ever learn to move in sync? Or do first impressions always define the story? The weeks after the training exercise unfolded like drops of rain, small, almost unnoticeable, yet steady enough to change the landscape. It began with a coincidence. Robert brought Emma in for her follow-up appointment. She bounded into the ER, her little backpack bouncing, her smile wide. Sophia was on shift. Dr. Lane, Emma squealed, waving so hard her braid came undone. Sophia's stern face softened. She crouched to examine the healing cut on Emma's forehead. Looks perfect. You've been taking good care of it. Emma nodded proudly. And of Dad, too. I made him promise not to pull his stitches. Robert gave an exaggerated sigh. My own personal warden. For the first time, Sophia's lips curved in something like amusement. 3 days later, Emma's science fair ribbon was pinned proudly to her coat. She tugged Sophia over, insisting she see her project. A homemade circulatory system crafted with straws and a plastic pump. Blood goes around and around, Emma explained, her voice animated. Just like Dr. Lane told me. Sophia blinked. She hadn't realized Emma had absorbed so much. You remembered all that? Of course, Emma said seriously. I might be a doctor someday. Robert's eyes softened at that. Or whatever you want to be, kiddo, he reminded gently. Sophia caught it. The way he never pressed her toward a path, never weighed her down with expectation. It struck her. She had grown up with maps of her life drawn before she was old enough to read them. Medicine wasn't a choice. It was an inheritance. Emma tugged at Sophia's sleeve. You should come to dinner sometime. Dad makes pasta, but it's not great. Robert groaned. Emma. Sophia hid her smile. I'll keep that in mind. The next week, Sophia spotted them again in the hospital cafeteria. Emma's therapy session had been canceled last minute. Disappointment hung heavy on the girl's face. Everything okay? Sophia asked, balancing her tray. Robert explained quickly, but before he could finish, Sophia set down her food. I have 30 minutes free. Not physical therapy, but the education wing has models. I could show Emma a few things. Emma's face lit up like a lamp. Yes, please. For half an hour, Sophia knelt beside Emma, explaining anatomy with simple words, her hands guiding tiny fingers over plastic hearts and lungs. Robert watched quietly, struck by the sight of the surgeon, who was always so guarded, suddenly laughing at a child's question about why hearts don't squeak like balloons. She wasn't just a surgeon. She was a teacher. Gentle, patient, human. And when they walked out together, Sophia mentioned, almost casually, there's a Saturday Explorer program. Very hands-on. I volunteer twice a month. Robert studied her face. She pretended not to care. But he heard what she wasn't saying. She wanted Emma there. She wanted to see Emma again. That Saturday, Robert stood in the parents' lounge, arms folded, as Sophia led a group of children through an activity building pulse monitors with straws and rubber bands. Emma sat at the front, eyes bright, asking endless questions. Sophia answered every single one without a trace of impatience. She didn't talk at the kids. She talked to them, lowering her language to their level, but never her respect. Robert saw something then he hadn't let himself imagine. A version of Sophia who belonged not only in the sterile order of an operating room, but in the messy, noisy joy of ordinary life. Afterward, as Emma chattered excitedly about blood pressure and heartbeats, Robert walked beside Sophia in the crisp evening air. "Thank you," he said quietly. She tilted her head. "For what?" "For giving her something to be excited about. She hasn't been this alive since." He stopped. The words lodged in his throat. "Since her mom," Sophia finished gently. The admission hung between them. Painful. Raw. He nodded once, unable to say more. Sophia didn't offer comfort. No platitudes. Just silence, the kind that didn't demand, didn't pry. And somehow, that meant more than any carefully chosen words could. It became a rhythm. Small moments stitched together. Robert showed up at the coffee shop near the hospital with a lavender latte, Sophia's favorite, though she never told him how he knew. Sophia let Emma drag her into the cafeteria to show her drawings or share silly jokes. One evening, when Sophia's car battery died in the staff lot, Robert appeared in his SUV, jumper cables in hand. "Just following doctor's orders," he teased lightly. She smirked despite her exhaustion. "What orders?" "Help others." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was almost comfortable. And then came the snow. Early November, heavy flakes swirling outside the ER windows. The hospital buzzed with back-to-back surgeries. Sophia's hands moved tirelessly from one case to the next, until the gurney rolled in. Gunshot wounds. Multiple entry points. Blood pooling fast. Sophia barely glanced up until she saw the watch on the patient's wrist. Familiar. Her heart seized. Robert. She swallowed the rush of panic, snapping into surgical focus. Clamp. Suction. Prep for thoracotomy. Her hands never wavered, but inside, she was shaking. "Vitals dropping," a nurse shouted. Sophia refused to look at his face. She couldn't. Not until she controlled the bleeding. Not until she sealed what she could. Only when his pulse steadied, fragile but present, did she allow herself one glance. Pale skin. Closed eyes. The commander who had walked her through smoke and shadows, who had fixed her car battery, who had shown her a lavender latte like it was a peace offering, now unconscious under her blade. Her voice didn't betray her. "Get cardiothoracic on call." And Page Family Services. "There's a daughter, Emma Hayes, 7 years old." The words cut deeper than the scalpel ever could. That night, Sophia sat in the waiting area, Emma's small hand clutched in hers. "Is my dad going to die like Mom did?" the girl asked softly, her voice trembling. Sophia froze. The weight of the question was unbearable. "Your dad is very strong," she whispered. "And the doctors are doing everything they can." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "But sometimes that's not enough. That's what happened with Mom." Sophia swallowed hard. No textbook could answer this. No medical protocol could promise survival. So she bent lower, pressing Emma's hand between her own. "Do you want to see something?" She led the child into a quiet consultation room, pulling up Robert's scans on the screen. "See this." Sophia pointed gently. "That's your dad's heart. Still strong. Still beating." Emma's gaze locked on the flickering rhythm. "And the dark spots. That's where the bullets hurt him," Sophia said honestly. "But look how the blood keeps moving. His body is already fighting. He's still here." For the first time that night, Emma exhaled, shoulders sagging in relief. When she finally drifted into exhausted sleep, Sophia sat alone in the stairwell, her own composure breaking at last. The past came flooding back, glass exploding, a calm voice telling her to stay alive, strong arms shielding her against the blast. And suddenly, a terrifying realization struck her. The man who had once carried her out of hellfire was the same man now fighting for his life under her care. Do you believe fate sometimes ties people together through the darkest of moments, or is it all just coincidence? The morning after surgery, Robert stirred awake, the weight of tubes and monitors tethering him to the hospital bed. His chest burned with every breath, But it wasn't the pain that made him still. It was the face at his bedside. Sophia. Her eyes were guarded, her posture professional. But the set of her jaw revealed what her mask tried to hide: exhaustion, and something else she didn't want him to see. "Emma," he rasped, voice raw from intubation. "With your sister," Sophia answered softly. "She stayed until you were stable." Relief flickered across his face. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again, studying her with unsettling clarity. "It was he, wasn't it?" he said, voice barely above a whisper. "The med student. Boston University. 2016. Sophia's breath caught. For a second, she wanted to deny it, to bury the truth. But there was no point. His eyes told her he already knew. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "Since the training," Robert admitted. "The way you froze in the dark. I wasn't certain until now." The room seemed to shrink around them, the beeping monitor the only sound between confessions. "I never thanked you," she whispered, her voice breaking the silence. "No need." He tried to sit up, winced. "Just doing my job." Her eyes flashed. "Like me saving your life was just professional duty." He turned away, jaw tight. "You have a career. A life. I didn't want to drag you back into old scars." But his restraint, his instinct to protect her even from gratitude, struck deeper than any wound. She realized this was their pattern. Both of them carrying the world on their shoulders, while refusing to let anyone carry them. 2 weeks into his recovery, that pattern clashed again. She found him in the rehab room, pushing far beyond what his body could handle, sweat pouring, stitches straining. "You're risking everything," she snapped. "You'll tear your wounds open." "I need to get home. Emma needs normal." His voice was tight, stubborn. "What Emma needs," Sophia countered sharply, "is a father who doesn't collapse from pride." His eyes blazed. "Like you let anyone help you? When was the last time you trusted someone, Sophia?" The words hit harder than any bullet. For a moment, she had no reply. She only turned, anger and fear clashing inside her. That night, she received an emergency page. Robert had checked himself out against medical advice. She found him in the lobby, arguing with administration, his face pale but determined. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, storming over. "Emma's nightmares are getting worse," he said, his voice breaking. "She needs me home, not here." Sophia froze. The vulnerability in his tone was raw, unguarded. For the first time, she truly saw the impossible balance he carried. Father, commander, survivor. She didn't argue. Instead, she disappeared down the hall, making calls, pulling strings. 30 minutes later, she returned. "I've arranged home health care, equipment delivery tomorrow morning, and in-home physical therapy." She hesitated. "And I've taken family leave. 2 weeks." He stared at her. "Why would you?" "Because you can't do this alone. And Emma needs stability while you recover." He opened his mouth to protest, but she cut him off. "You didn't ask. I offered." They both knew her excuse, professional courtesy, was a flimsy cover. Living under the same roof was awkward at first. Sophia kept her distance, sleeping in the guest room, addressing Robert like a patient, not a man. But Emma refused to play by those rules. She dragged Sophia into the kitchen to taste her lopsided pancakes. She pulled her onto the couch to watch cartoons. She slipped her small hand into Sophia's during walks to the park. Slowly, the walls crumbled. One night, Robert found Sophia in the kitchen, staring out the window, shoulders tense. He didn't need to ask. He recognized the look. "Nightmare?" he asked gently. She startled, then tried to cover. "Just checking medication times." "Olivia," he said, the first time he used her first name. "You don't have to be Dr. Lane here." Her throat tightened. That one sentence, quiet permission to stop performing, cracked something open inside her. "I still dream about it sometimes," she admitted. "The shooting. Not being able to help anyone." He nodded slowly. "Is that why you became a trauma surgeon? To never feel helpless again?" The truth she had never spoken sat heavy on her tongue. She met his gaze. "Yes. And me." His voice was quiet. I stayed with SWAT after Emma was born because I thought if I controlled enough chaos, maybe she'd never feel what I felt losing Lisa. For a moment, their armor lay at their feet. Two soldiers, admitting why they fought. But the closer they drew, the harder Sophia's instinct to retreat grew. "You're stable enough now," she said abruptly one night. "Home health can take it from here. Emma's more settled." Robert studied her face. "Running is easier than staying." "I know. I did the same after Lisa died. Buried myself in work. Avoided anything new. Anything that might break again." Her pulse quickened. "I'm not running." "Aren't you?" he asked softly. "What are you so afraid will happen if you stay?" She couldn't answer. The fear was too big, too raw. "You've saved me twice," he said finally. "Once in the operating room, and once by being here for Emma. At least let me thank you before you disappear." But she left anyway, her goodbye hidden behind professionalism. Her apartment felt colder than ever. The bare walls suffocated her. For the first time in years, she unpacked old photographs, her graduation, a trip with friends, moments she'd buried in boxes. She hung them slowly, acknowledging that maybe she didn't want to be alone forever. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived at the hospital. Inside, a handmade card. A heart monitor sketched in crayon, the peaks and valleys spelling out, "We miss you." Emma's handprint signed at the bottom. Sophia pressed her fingers over the tiny print, her eyes stinging. That evening, she found herself parked outside Robert's house, heart pounding. For minutes, she sat frozen behind the wheel. Finally, she stepped out. Emma flung the door open. "Dad, Dr. Sophia's here." Robert appeared in the hall, surprise in his eyes, quickly replaced with quiet warmth. "This is unexpected," he said. Sophia's lips trembled into a nervous smile. "I missed you. Both of you." 3 words. Simple. Honest. Something shifted. That night, after dinner, they sat on the porch, watching snow fall in silence. "I've been thinking about what you asked," Sophia said at last. "What are you afraid of if you stay?" Robert finished for her. She swallowed. "I'm afraid of building something that could break. Medicine makes sense. I can repair what's broken. But relationships? No protocols. No guarantees." Robert looked at her, eyes steady. "Neither does raising a child. Neither does love. You improvise. You adapt. You hope you're doing it right." Her lips quirked faintly. "I'm not good at improvising." "You saved my life without a plan," he reminded. "You adapted." Silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Neither do I," he admitted. "But I'd like to try."